It says that we're live. We're going to go ahead and trust that. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm just going to bring this up to do a bit of troubleshooting, everyone, before I welcome you to the live show. This meeting's being live streamed. I'll click that OK button and troubleshooting, everyone, before I welcome you to the live show. Excellent. There we go. Meeting's being live streamed. I'll click that OK button and troubleshooting, everyone. And I'm hearing. Oh, that's what's happening. Yeah, let's turn that off. There we go. I was hearing some reverb. I was hearing myself speak, and it was creepy. Okay, I'm just going to do a couple of things here to get set. We're going to move this mic piece here so that I can reach my tea, because that's very important. And many of you come to the live show to watch me drink the tea. I know that that's a part of it. So today, welcome everyone. Happy Friday. Welcome to the show. Today, what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be doing some live coaching with a guest I'm really excited to have. Her name is Dr. Sherry Shannon-Vanstone. I get caught up on triple names. She's got 3 names. So I'm really excited to partner with her today in this conversation. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment, or maybe in a few minutes. First, I'm going to talk a little bit about where I've been, because we haven't had one of these live shows for probably about a month. And so I want to share sort of what I've been up to, and then we'll bring Sherry on, and then we'll dive in together. Before we do that, we should all take a sip of tea together. Let's take a simultaneous sip. This mug has a Q on it because my last name is Quiney, not because I think QAnon is anything worth spending your time on. I realize there's some confusion with one of my other guests. I want to make that very clear. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. Okay, so Bay and I are fresh back from the retreat that we were leading in Costa Rica over the course of January for our group called The Forge. And I want to talk a little bit about what I really took away from that. And The Forge, to give you a bit of context, is a group. It's about 30 people at this point, give or take, plus or minus 5 on any given year. And the reason we created it was because we found that most of the coaching and leadership in the world that was available tended to be on the side of like techniques, models, frameworks that all kind of sat on top of how someone was being. So for example, I could go and I could take IFS and I could learn all about internal family systems and like these different parts of myself. And underneath that, like I could go and I could start applying that on people, whilst underneath that, who I was being was someone who was afraid of looking stupid and therefore had learned to kind of be invulnerable and avoid intimacy and very, very smart and make sure that I'm always the one with the intellect. I'm always the one on top. And so I'm going to go into the world and I'm going to deliver this framework, IFS or 3 principles, or, you know, whatever you want to call it, imago therapy. But underneath that, I'm going to be delivering all of that from this, we could call it like maybe a bit of a tainted way of being, a way of being that is guided by my fear. And so that's what we saw a lot of in the world. And by very, very great fortune, we had found ourselves into a very rigorous training program and stayed on and led their work for about 5 years at various levels. We had gotten the gift of like something that really penetrated below that level. And so we created The Forge to support coaches and leaders that wanted to be involved in that kind of work. And ultimately, what we're doing is supporting people that want to become transformational in whatever it is they do. So whether they're a coach, whether they're a leader, people want to like, I want to create a business that transforms the lives of those that it touches, as opposed to just give them more of what they already have, or as opposed to like pile them further into the capitalism game, you know, whatever that happens to be. And so this retreat happens midway through our year. We start in September, we go until May, and in January we have this retreat. And the intention is that leading up to the retreat, we're doing a lot of teaching concepts and providing a little bit of opportunity for people to practice. We have to teach new concepts because if we're going to support people to see something brand new, something that they haven't yet been able to see, we need new concepts to speak of it. And the best way to think of this is to imagine if you've spent your entire life living in a 2-dimensional plane, and now we want to talk about, we want to help you see the 3rd dimension. We want to break you free from the confines of just 2 dimensions and help you see the 3rd. We're going to have to create this new concept. In the 2-dimensional plane, we have an x-axis and we have a y-axis. We have like, what is that? Length and height, I guess. And once we introduce a 3rd dimension, we have the z-axis or z-axis for our American listeners. we have depth, and we have to create a new terminology to speak to depth. We can't just be like, oh, it's like another width, because then you're going to take that concept, you're going to place it into what you already know in the two-dimensional world, and then you're not going to get this new concept, this new context. So this is what we're doing. We're helping people get all of this, and then on this retreat, what we're intending to do is like pop them, have this stuff start to be not just something that exists in their mind, but something that really shifts in terms of how they show up in their life, their bodies, the way they move. And that requires a lot of deep coaching, a lot of deep work, a lot of very intimate conversations. So leading into this, the way Bay and I were feeling was tired and kind of exhausted and like, oh my God, are we even going to keep doing this program? You know, it's a lot of hard work. We were struggling with our leadership team. We weren't feeling very related with them, meaning like our relationship felt kind of broken down. It felt like they didn't really trust us. We felt like they weren't really able to hold the energy that was getting created in the group, and so on and so forth. And so going down to the retreat, my friends would ask like, hey, you got your retreat coming up, you excited? And the way we kind of felt about it was like, yeah, like kind of like what we know is coming is there's going to be a lot of what we call ontological heavy lifting, like heavy lifting in the realm of who we're being. We're going to have to do some stuff in terms of who we're being. And that's going to be hard work. But on the other side of it, we know we're going to feel pretty amazing. And so what I want to share here, just by virtue of opening up this conversation today, is the work that we had to do with our leadership team in order to create what came next. And so the way we structure this is our leadership team comes down and they work with us for about 3 days prior to anyone else coming, prior to the rest of our group coming. And in those 3 days, what we're seeking to do is support our team to like unload all of the resentments they may be holding on to, all of the stuff that they're like, that's in the way of them being nice and clean and pristine, all of the things in the way. So as an example of that, if someone is operating with this story, like Adam is a jerk, for example, not an uncommon story, totally a reasonable story. But if that's what they've got, then they're going to sit in the space and receive everything that I share as I'm leading through the lens of, oh, here's jerk face Adam again, being a jerk. And that energy that they're holding is going to subtly permeate into the room. For example, maybe I say something and it upsets someone, not necessarily because I'm a jerk, but because that person had a reaction to it, or because I'm pointing to something that person doesn't want to see. This person on our leadership team who's holding the energy of Adam's a jerk is going to have a reaction to that person's reaction. And then that creates this collusion in the space. One person's the leadership team is going to be holding like Adam's a jerk. And then other people are going to notice that and be like, yeah, that guy is a jerk. And all of that gets in the way of the initial person being able to like really notice their reaction and go inwards with it rather than putting it on me. So this is what we have to clean up. And the way we do that is we sit down at the start of this retreat and we say, tell us everything that you're holding. Tell us all of the stuff that's in the way. Tell us all of the resentments you have. Tell us all of the criticisms, all of the you guys suck, blah, 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 blah. And our job is to sit there and receive it. And what we are doing is we are doing a lot of work initially before we even show up to like, so that we're clean, so that we're not holding anything on our team. We do that with our own coaches, all of that stuff. Then second, we sit down and we let them bring that to us. And our job is just to hear it, really get it, and then apologize for it. Free of any like, well, but can you see how this is actually your thing? And it always is like a two-way street, like because we're in relationship. So they're always going to have like stuff for which we can see plenty of it is like their projection, you know, but it doesn't matter. Because pointing to them and inviting them to take a look, or how do you see this as your thing, is just going to get in the way of them having the cathartic release of fully being heard and being gotten and being apologized for. So it demands a lot of us because we have to set down this very human part of ourselves that's like, yeah, but you're contributing to that. And any of you in relationships know what I'm talking about, right? Like anytime our partner is like, you're doing this, we're like, yeah, but you're also doing that. And you're the other side of that equation. And it's true. And it doesn't matter. And so we actively practice receiving this, hearing it, understanding it, and then apologizing for it. So that's what I would call ontological heavy lifting. And the amazing thing that starts to happen is twofold. On our leader team side, the people that are sharing this stuff, they start to get this amazing experience that they were sharing with us. They were like, wow, as you apologize for this, what I'm noticing is it's like I'm receiving an apology for all of the times this has happened in my life that I've never ever gotten an apology before. Like, you know, my ex-husband or my boyfriend at the time, or my dad or my brother or my sister or my wife or that person at the coffee shop. I would share this with them and they would explain it away or they wouldn't apologize. And like this moment is like profound in a way. It's like it's healing all of those things. So that's a very profound role that we get to hold. And then on our side, what we really got was like, oh, there's some places where what we're providing isn't what is wanted, or where like maybe we're coming in too hard, or like there's a different thing. And so one of the things that really came out of this work for us, and then I'm going to start to wind this down, was us seeing like, oh wow, first of all, doing work in person is like the most potent that we can do. Zoom, that's fine, right? It's a stopgap and it's better than the absence, but it's no substitute. And we want to create more of these opportunities where we can kind of create this magic with our leadership team and then create the magic with the people that are here to participate with us. And so what we started to see out of that was, oh, we need a way to create more opportunities for this. And so what we're shifting, what the Forge is shifting to, is a system where we are now going to have 3 in-person gatherings. And the retreat will still happen in January. And the way that's gone historically is that people pay to be a part of this program, and then the retreat's covered. They have to get themselves there. We cover all their food, all their lodgings, everything else, their excursions. And we went whitewater rafting this time, super cool. And that's all covered. I'm going to karate chop my microphone for emphasis. Yeah. And then I'm going to adjust my cable because I wrecked the mic. There we go. We're back. So that is still going to be there. And I over the years, I've been racking my brains like, boy, how do we make this work? How do like, we can't afford, unless we charge like $60,000 for this program, we can't afford to like keep doing that. And we can, you know, it's hard enough. Like we're lucky to have a place where we can afford that, but it's expensive to do that. And what we realized through this partnership that got created with our leadership team was, oh, the opportunity is to have one retreat still, but then bookend it with 2 intensives. And the structure of the intensives will be one day just with our leadership team, one day with our leadership team and all members of the Forge. And then the last 3 days, we also open it up to the public. And what that provides is a couple things. Provides a way to do more in-person work. It provides a way for us to deliver that without having to cover the costs, without having to like charge an astronomical amount for this whole program. And 3, it provides an opportunity for people that aren't yet ready for this level of commitment, like to something like the Forge, to come and get an experience of our work, to do some of that work with us, and to learn some of these tools that really make our lives like much, much easier, much, much better, much, much richer, all of that sort of stuff. Because you can only do so much with writing or with podcasting or with teaching or stuff like that. The real work happens when we're like coaching, when we're really diving into it. So that was a revelation for us to come out of that, to bring that home. And we're now in the process of like putting that together as quickly as we can. It's a little bit crazy because, you know, we're sort of adjusting the course of an aircraft carrier midstream, but you know, I think we're up for it. So that's something that's coming down the pipeline. Stay tuned if that's interesting to you. If that seems like, wow, that seems like something cool that you'd like to be a part of, great. We'd love to share more about it, and we will be. The first intensive, I think, I'm pretty certain it'll be this year in May. I think May 29th through 31st here in Victoria, BC. And then we'll start doing one every year in Victoria. And then the first one will occur somewhere in Europe, I think, because we love Europe, England, France, something like that. So it's going to be pretty awesome. Stay tuned. I highly recommend you take part. Anyhow, let me take a sip of tea and change subjects. We got a sweet guest today, and I'm really excited to bring her on in a moment. But before I do, I want to talk a little bit about like the process by which we have guests come on and like really honor this. So I get a lot of people emailing me and they say, I've got the perfect guest for you. And the perfect guest is always, they have plenty of credentials. They've usually written a book and they're probably up to something pretty cool in the world. But what most of these guests want to do is they want to come on the podcast and they want to share about their story, their mission, their journey, their book, etc. And that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But at least for me, there's a lot of that already in the world. And what I always write back is like, hey, here's what it looks like to be a guest on this podcast. They got to be open to being coached by me because that's what we're doing here. The premise of our work here is that the leader goes first, and that if we want to be a leader, we have to be willing to be led. If we want to coach other people and support them to move forward, we have to be willing to consume that ourselves. We have to take on coaching. And sadly, most people say, it doesn't feel like a fit. I don't think this is really what I'm looking for. Or frankly, it's too much work, or you seem weird, Adam, or something along those lines. And that's all good. So when I get responses that people are game to play with me this way, it's really, really sacred. And really, like, I really honor the vulnerability and the courage that just comes from being a yes to that. Never mind whatever happens. We could have the safest, most boring conversation here. I don't think we will, but that's a possibility. And it's still a vulnerable thing. And so a huge thank you to all the guests that we've had up to this point. And I just want to really invite you, if you're a listener or a viewer, to really check these people out, because these are the people we have on here are the people that are like actually willing to model the hard work of leadership, which is a willingness to like have people see us in the mix ourselves, as opposed to just telling other people, don't worry, be vulnerable, be courageous, do all these things. Don't ask me too many questions about my life. My life is great. So it's really amazing. So having said that, I'm going to share a little bit about our guest today, and then I'll have her put on her camera and microphone. So our guest is Sherry Shannon-Vanstone. Again, the triple name always gets me, Sherry Shannon-Vanstone. And I always have guests fill out like a form to let me know like a little bit about them, what they're up to, what they're doing. And Sherry's super cool. And one of the things I ask people is, well, I closed my email. What's the best gift you've ever given? And what's the best gift you've ever gotten? And Sherry wrote, for the best gift she's ever given, a Lamborghini to her partner at the time, which I was like, damn, that totally outdoes many of the gifts that I managed to give. So she's got some interesting stories to tell us. Sherry, why don't you put on turn your camera on, turn your microphone on, get on here. Hello.
Hi, good morning. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How was it hanging out in the green room?
Oh, it's great. I love to hear about this. It's yeah, exciting trip to Costa Rica. Sounds like it is transformational.
Oh, it's amazing. Have you ever been to Costa Rica?
Yes, I lived there for a year, many
Tell
years
us.
ago.
Whereabouts? Where were you?
In San Jose.
Cool. Yeah, so the capital, right? Big city?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes. I've heard, I haven't been back, but I've heard it's changed a lot since I was there.
Yeah, how long ago was that?
30 years ago,
Oh,
30,
I'm
maybe
sure.
40,
Yeah,
40 years ago.
I bet it's
Yes.
radically changed because so that would have been the 80s, and I bet their
Yes.
tourism was probably just starting to really pick up then,
Yes.
I would imagine.
Mhm.
Yeah. Huh. Boy, that would have been
Yes.
cool. Yeah, one of the things I really love about that country is this idea of pura vida. Was pura vida a thing back then?
No, no, it wasn't.
I thought that might have been kind of newer. So pura vida is like almost like their sort of cultural saying these days, which means pure living, the pure life.
Mhm.
And sometimes people are like, I don't know about Costa Rica. They don't really have their own culture. Their culture is not that unique. And what I experience is their culture is like based in a real appreciation of two things, nature and family. And like, boy, how do you get much better than that? You know, that really is pura vida. That is the pure living, and what a
Yeah.
beautiful way to
And the
approach
other
life.
thing that I found when I was there, and of course that wasn't what they were emphasizing, but it was more about being than it was more about being than
Yes.
acting. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Beautiful people, such fun. What the other thing, there's many things, but one of the things I love and find very endearing about them is that everyone in Costa Rica has an apodo, which is your nickname. So like you can anytime you meet someone, you can be like, hey, what's your apodo? And then they'll tell you, and like, I'll meet someone who's like, oh, pollo, like your nickname's chicken. Cool. And
Mhm.
like there's so much richness in finding someone's nickname. Like we learn so much about someone just from that one thing. So let me ask you this, Sherry. Do you have an apodo? Do you have a nickname?
No, I don't.
Oh my goodness. Okay, well, we'll probably come up with one for you by the end of this episode.
Okay.
I feel like that's going to happen.
Okay, good. I'll look forward to it. I'm looking forward to it. Let's see. Yeah.
Mine is my last name, which is Quiney. So that's a very nicknameable last name. And then sometimes when people are willing to like let me nickname myself, it's Lord Adam. That's the self-imposed nickname. It doesn't really catch on. People like Quiney more. That's okay. That's how it goes.
Okay.
Cool. Okay, well, we're going to dive in. Is there anything you want to share or ask or speak to before we dive in and do some coaching together?
No, I'm excited.
Cool. Me too.
Yeah.
All right. So then you might see me. Actually, I don't have a notebook here, so bear with me. I'm just going to grab a notebook right behind me. I'll be right back. 1 second. Okay, I have a notebook now. I'm prepared. I'm safe. I can stare at my notes if I get intimidated. So you may see me look down. Let's fix that. That was a disaster. May see me look down as I take some notes, but that's all I'm doing. There's no fun phone game or anything that I'm playing.
Okay.
Okay, cool. So what would you like us to take a look at? What do you want to work with, Sherry?
No, I'll just tell a little bit about my background. I'm a
Please.
serial tech entrepreneur, having had successful exits in both Silicon Valley and in the Toronto Waterloo corridor. I have been in information security. I was a cryptologic mathematician with the US government.
Mm.
I've been very successful in startups, and I have also loved drama. I enjoyed theater. I've been a public speaker, but recently I get really nervous, more nervous than I've ever been. And I'm thinking, why is that? No, all these years of teaching, speaking, pitching to investors, and now I find that I'm more nervous than ever.
Mm-hmm.
So I gave up. Our company was chosen as a top 10 from Collision, which is a big tech conference here in Toronto area every year. And we were chosen as the top 10. And I made it to the stage, and you get 3 minutes, and my knees were knocking.
Mm.
And I'm thinking, and this has never happened to me before. So I don't know. That's one of many things that I could be coached on. But yes.
That's the one you're bringing.
That's what I'm bringing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Love it. I'm sure that plenty of people can relate to that too. Like that's super common, and then also really interesting because it sounds like that's not been historically how it's been. Is that accurate?
No. I've been able to, if I was talking about personally about myself, I might get emotional. But if I was talking about technology, about my companies, I could just put it out there with passion and with the belief in whatever I was speaking about. And I don't know if it's because there's a time, I'm seeing this clock, but I just did it this week too. I was launching a new initiative in Toronto, and I was the opening speaker, and I was shaking. I'm thinking,
is the shaking part new?
Yeah, it's just my hands start shaking and my knees start knocking, and I try to keep my voice from reflecting that, but I go get my my cup of water and my glass of water, and I'm shaking. So I'm going, wait a minute, where did this come from?
Got
So,
it. Okay, great. So what would you like? What would be in an ideal world where we can magically make anything happen? What would be the ideal result? Like, where would you want to arrive at?
that I could just maybe, there's something I could tell myself. I know I have a saying right in front of me. It says, breathe in, breathe out, think, be calm, and all that. But something that I can maybe visualize. I can't take, I'm up there for 15 minutes. I can't take a 2-minute break. I've got to get myself together quickly. And I'm prepared. I prepared. I'm ready to speak. I know the subject. So it's not the lack of knowledge about what I'm talking about. And I'm not necessarily have to memorize it. But I want to be able to deliver it without shaking. Now, maybe being nervous is okay. Maybe people don't, maybe they don't view it in the same way that I do. But I'd like to be a little calmer, but I'd like to maybe, there's something I could just think or just say to myself, or maybe even like, okay, 1, 2, 3, count or whatever. I don't know what the solution is, but
Sure.
it's just that that would, and you think, why does it matter to me? Is because uh, I want to, I am confident. I want to show that. I want to have the gravitas,
Uh-huh.
and people will listen to me, will be impacted by what I say, because I'm trying to be influential in a very positive way. And then also I mentor a lot of people.
Uh-huh.
And, that's another thing. Of course, I've been a mentee, and I still am a mentee, but I also mentor a lot of people. So I'm a mentor. I'd like to share this with them too, because I know I must not be the only one that's going through this. So,
Uh-huh. Yeah, and you mentioned like you don't know the solution, and the bad news is me neither. But
mhm.
I really believe we can get clear on like what's actually going on, and then from there see what would
Yeah.
really support it. So
Yep. Okay.
okay. So if I got that right, ultimately where you'd like to get to is like to be able to experience, or well, the way you said it was like I'd like to be calmer, be able to like just be, I think this is my word, not so much yours, but like grounded as you're doing that sort of thing.
Mhm.
Is that accurate?
Yes, yes. Because right now, even when, okay, so I'm pitching to an investor,
Yeah.
the investors invest in people. The idea is second, the people is first.
Yes.
So there's certain things that I need to, that they can see. That I call
Mm.
it gravitas, grounding or whatever. So when you walk into the room, you have confidence. You're not arrogant, but you have confidence. You know what you're talking about. People say, "Oh, that person really knows what they're talking about."
Uh-huh.
And so this is, call it grounding. I'm fine with that. Gravitas to me is kind of that. It's the gravity. It's grounding you, and your whole presence and how you present. And I've always been very good at that.
Uh-huh.
So, but being a little nervous and shaky, I think people are okay for maybe a second of that or two, but now you've got to be able to say, okay, I'm okay in my own skin.
Mm.
Yeah. And that
Mm.
people will believe me, be influenced by me.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Got it. Okay, so there's like the desire for them to have a particular experience of you, which is one of like gravitas, one of being grounded, one of being confident, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
And like you've got good reasons for why. What would you want your internal experience to be when you're up there, or when you're pitching, or any of these
That's,
situations?
yeah, I want to be more calmer.
Calm.
I,
Yeah.
I, I love that people say you're passionate, that comes through. People love that, but you can't be hysterical.
All right.
You're passionate, but you can't be jumping off the walls.
Unless you're Steve Ballmer.
Yeah. Other than that, yeah.
Right.
So there are people who can carry it off, right?
Yes.
But not. That's not what I want. I want to feel like, okay, I'm excited to be here. I want you to know that. And but so it's more like, okay, I don't have to worry about anything really, just
Mm.
because I know what I know, and I'm not making it up. So yeah, so it's that, getting that across, the level of confidence. And when you are pitching to investors, that's what they're looking at. They're looking at how confident are you? Are you seen as a leader? Uh, then you can go into your experience, and that, I've had these successful exits, and people go, oh, yeah, well, I'm not a new entrepreneur. I've started 5 companies. I've had 2 IPOs and 2 acquisitions.
Uh-huh.
And so they need to know that. So what I'm saying is important for them to hear. But if I'm really nervous and shaky, I don't want that to take away from my message.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just going to speak more broadly to the audience for a
Mhm,
moment. Like
mhm,
what Sherry's doing a beautiful job of explaining is the distinction between what we're doing and what we're doing and what we've done, and then who we're being underneath it. So I'm hearing you say, Sherry, like you've got this wealth of experience of like tried, tested, and true, like hardened on the battlefield, all of that. But then there's like underneath that, in terms of who you're being, there's some nervousness. There's like, and that's grown as of late.
mhm.
That
Yes,
that they can feel that, and it almost doesn't matter, the stuff on the top, if we're present to being first and foremost. That's what comes across
yes,
initially. Got it.
yeah,
Okay, so that makes sense. So more calm, still excited, but like calm in yourself, present,
mhm,
grounded. That's kind of the sense, the experience you want to have.
yes.
Okay, got it. Okay, so what do you like what do you imagine is contributing to this increasing as time has gone on? Because you've shared that that's grown, and it's okay if you don't have the right answer. I'm just curious what you think it might be.
And mm, um, I okay, I'll just try to say some words here that make
Yeah, that's
sense.
great.
Um,
Yeah.
that maybe it's okay, I'm a Capricorn. Okay. When you've been to the top of the mountain, which I have,
Uh-huh.
it's hard for Capricorns. They hate failure. It's about failure, right?
Right.
We can't accept it.
Uh-huh.
So I think that's it. Maybe that's it. Just the fear of failure.
So why is it like I have a intuition or I think I have an understanding, but maybe you can say it expressly for me. Like, why is it you think that this nervousness, this fear is growing as time has gone on?
Because just I maybe just because I've been so successful, I just don't know how to fail.
Hmm.
I mean, I have failures. I've always, we all have failures, and I've had failures, but I don't want to fail this time around. So maybe that's it. Just again, it comes back to that.
Hmm.
Anyway, it's getting emotional.
Yeah, yeah. What would you be willing, like, I don't want to step over that. I really want to honor that that's showing up. Like, what is the emotion that's showing up?
Yeah, I don't know. It just, I guess that's the whole thing of being vulnerable. Um, yeah, I. It's hard to explain.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Is well, first of all, I just want to honor that that's there. Thanks for having technology available for it too.
Yes, the greatest technology.
Yes, indeed. And I really want to honor you, Sherry, for allowing yourself to feel what is there to feel, because that's not what we're taught, especially in tech. You and I
Yeah.
both have a background in tech. That was mine as well. And like what I was trained in was sort of like be a thinking abacus. And
Mhm.
maybe there's time for emotions like somewhere else, like after you go and sit at your desk or whatever. So thanks for allowing that to
Well,
be
and
present.
especially with women too, we
Yes.
are taught not to show our emotions um, because that's weakness.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious, like, my sense is that there's something important about the emotion that showed up and that it's worth exploring, but also that there's a part of you that doesn't really want to touch it, that kind of wants
Yeah,
it to like maybe go away.
yeah,
So I just want to check in with you and
yeah,
see
yeah,
like,
yeah. It's very it's very difficult to yes, you've got as you've got to push through it. You got to
uh,
push through it and to persevere through this. And um, yeah,
can you say a little bit more about that? So I imagine that showing up in this moment too, like, hey, maybe some self-talk, like, sure, you got to push through this. Is that accurate?
yeah,
Yeah.
yes, yes,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Can you share a little bit more about that? Like, tell me more about that story.
I think it's just if you can, if people would describe me, they would probably say persistent, I'm a workaholic, a persistent, persevere, passionate, and purposeful. Those
Uh-huh.
the four P's in this case. Um, and if people have heard me speak, or like my convocation speech when I received my doctorate was about the three P's. And anyway, I think that would pretty define myself all my life. It's just working
Mm.
hard, persevering. Uh, as I said, I've been very, very successful in a tech, the world of tech, which is there's a minority of women founded led companies and ventures in
Yes.
tech. That's changing,
Yeah.
and I'm happy to see that. And part of that is one of the huge purposes of my life is to see more women entrepreneurs and women starting their businesses and moving them forward to success, however they define success. So I think that's it. Just to say, okay, just gotta keep going, gotta persevere. If you're doing what you love to do, just keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing.
Mm.
So, through
Mm.
all the adversities and all the things that come up.
Ah,
Yeah.
got it. Which I imagine has like allowed you to create a lot of results.
Yes,
Is that
yes,
fair? Yeah.
true,
What's
true.
been the cost of that?
The cost. Uh, I I don't know. To me, I work hard and I play hard. We're talking about a Lamborghini and driving
Big
sports
toys?
cars and having toys like that, but also being able to go out and have fun with them. Just don't have them sit in your garage. Uh, so I wouldn't say that I I've been very lucky. I've been married 3 times, and they've all passed away. So
Oh, wow.
anyway, but as I said, I am living a great life. So, and I don't think that I don't see any uh, necessarily um, physical or certainly not financial cost to it for sure,
Hmm.
because I've been, as I said, successful. So uh, I have what I want, and I've been able to be as I said, an angel investor, and I'm an angel investor. I'm a philanthropist. I mentor. I lead initiatives for women led whatever. Whether I worked for years encouraging young women to study physics and mathematics.
What would
So
you want
I,
those young women to like? How would you want them to learn to be with their emotions?
but that's good. That's a great question.
I've been working on them.
Um, I think it's fine to me. I want to say be authentic. Um,
Okay.
and authenticity means sometimes, well, there's vulnerability with that, and you can't just put up this wall and not have any emotions whatsoever.
Uh-huh.
Well, maybe there are people. Okay, that's just not me. And people, people, as Simon Sinek says, they don't buy what they buy your why, and I
Yes.
think with why comes emotion, because that's what you're passionate about. And why changes too. It's my why has changed over many, many years. Why did I come to Canada? Why did I leave Silicon Valley? Was because of my why.
Hmm.
My why changed. My why was saying I didn't want to be in this toxic environment. I wanted to build, I wanted to be a founder of a company or a leader of a company that could build a culture of respect and diversity and inclusion. And so your why changes. And with why, there's passion with it. And there's also then therefore some type of emotion. And so when I'm talking to young people about this and mentoring young men and women, I just say, be your authentic self, understand your why. And when you do that, then everything else will follow from that.
So be your authentic self as far as emotions are concerned. Is that right?
Yes, yeah.
And then
And
there's like, mhm.
so what I'm saying is you I don't think you should necessarily not cry.
Uh-huh.
Is what I'm saying. But we've been told not to do that as women in
Yeah.
particular. We said you can't see us cry. You can,
Right.
you can, and you can't, if we raise our voice or we get emotional, we're considered hysterical. And when a man raises his voice and gets emotional, he's being strong. So it's a different thing that we're being taught.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's what's happening with me right now, but it's just that, it's okay to be somewhat emotional, but it can't, as I said, you can't be hysterical or within yourself, inside yourself. You
Uh-huh.
really have to. So how do you do that? How do you do both? How do you say, I'm really mad about this? So what I've also said to the young people and everybody is choose your battles, know when to fight, know when to back off. Uh, and again, I think that's when you really know yourself and what your why is. Then you can say, I know this is important and I'm going to fight for it. And maybe I'll get emotional. And that's okay. That's the cost of it, is that I'm going to get emotional because it's core. It's a core value to me. It's my why. I'm going to
What's the
stand up
core
for it.
value?
It could be like
Oh,
for
you're speaking
example, when I
generally.
was, yeah, in generally, but I'll give you a specific on this. Is when I was in Silicon Valley, I was running a group. I headed up Asia Pacific. I went from a very technical job to a business development role, and I had a team of people, and I could stand up to the CEO, and he was misogynist. But he was also just not nice to people, and he would yell at people in meetings and disrespect them in all ways. And I could stand up and I would tell him, "You don't talk to me like that. I'm not going to stand for that." But my people and other people, I would fight for them. But the other people didn't fight for themselves. And then I was just like, okay. So the CEO and I we would start yelling at each other, and we had yelling matches at restaurants. And it's just like, and then we get back to the office and everything was fine with him. He just let it roll off his shoulder. But everybody else was looking at it. So anyway, that's what I'm saying. I just said, you can't disrespect people like that. So I'd stand up for and so I'd get emotional. I wasn't crying, but I would be standing right in his face, and we'd be face to face with each other and just saying this. I said, I'm not going to let this go. So that's
What
the thing. That's what I'm talking about. Is that disrespect for other people.
so what if like what's important, or maybe another way to put it is like what's the headline of what you just shared? Like in a single sentence.
Understand your core values and your why, and
Okay.
stand up for those. And those things that you can let go, because you don't need, if you're battling all the time, if you're fighting with people all the time, then there's something wrong. But if you know why you're doing it and you're not going to back down, then you're standing, and you know your core values, then people will see you as standing up for something. But if you're complaining or battling with everybody about everything, then people are going to see that you're just a complainer.
So long headline.
I'm sorry.
It's quite all right. It's quite all right.
I'm
Sherry,
very
what are
verbose.
well, I have a thought about that, but I'll come back to it. What are you worried I'm going to ask you right now?
Nothing.
Okay. But if there was something, what would it be?
I can't think of anything that I'm afraid of you asking me.
Okay. Why do you think I would ask that question right now?
There's nothing I can think of.
No, I got it. Yeah. So you're like, there's nothing I'm worried about Adam asking. I don't, now
I can't
now
even think of anything that would say, "Oh, I hope he doesn't ask me that." No, I
yeah.
can't even think of that. So
Yeah, clear. And so now I'm asking you a new question, which is why do you think I'm asking you that question I just asked you?
oh, I think you're trying to figure out maybe maybe the root of my nervousness. I think you're trying to drill down on that and try to get into that and try to take it
Okay.
apart and say, okay, I think I figured it out. No.
But why that particular question? Because I mean, that's why we're asking all these questions, of
Yeah,
course. It's a good
yeah,
guess, yeah.
yeah.
But why would I ask that particular question?
Well,
Why do you think?
because I've asked you for help in this area, and I think you're trying to figure me out, and you're
Okay.
trying to figure out what would help bring what could I say to myself,
Okay.
or what can I do in those situations to calm myself down and be more grounded. But if
Let
you
me
really knew what I'm really afraid of. So,
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
no,
My apologies. There's a little bit of a delay on the Zoom. So I will reveal. I will reveal why I'm asking that. But before I do, I want to check in. Like, so on a scale of 1 to 10, one being like completely grounded, like zero nervousness, just like, oh, I'm as present as I've ever been. This is like sitting in a swing watching a sunset, like just nothing to be concerned about. And then 10 is like maximum anxiety, nervousness, knees knocking, all that stuff. Where would you say you are in this moment?
2.
Okay, great. You want my reflection?
Mm-hmm.
You occur probably about a 7 or an 8.
Wow. Okay.
Uh-huh. And the reason I'm so like 1, it sounds like maybe there's some calibration that's like it's possible I'm completely out to lunch. I may be like way off the mark, but and that's fine. I'm happy. Like I'm not attached to being right about this, but my job is to like feel into people, to notice how they're being, and to reflect that, to kind of be a mirror. So I'm going to offer that as the reflection anyhow. The second thing I notice is that some emotion came up, and then you started to speak faster. And so I could feel like a desire on your part, like kind of let's move away from this emotion. And let's, instead of being in the emotion, let's talk about it, or let's talk around it. Does that part make sense?
Yes.
Were you able to feel that? Like, are you present to that?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Awesome. Thanks for, like, I really acknowledge you being able to feel it. It's not always easy. And then the second thing I noticed was, as I asked you, like, how do you want, like, what would you want other women, the ones you're mentoring, sponsoring, coaching, whatever, how would you want them to be with their emotion? Again, you started to pick up speed in your talking. You became more verbose. And the experience I had was like we were talking around the emotion that was there for you, as opposed to being with the emotion.
Okay.
So tell me how, I'm not saying I'm right about any of that. I'm just curious, how does that sit with you?
Um, I understand. I think you're right in that moment, but I thought you were asking me how I was feeling now. And
Mm-hmm.
I,
And that's what I was reflecting.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
uh, reflecting, yes, when I was talking about the specific things, I don't disagree with you, but I thought you meant right now, how I was feeling. I'm more
Yeah,
comfortable,
I did.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And
And
you still think
that's
I'm a
where I was
7 and
offering my
8.
reflection
Okay.
from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm going to make like a couple assertions, and
Okay.
my invitation is to like check them out. But it doesn't, an assertion doesn't mean I'm right. I'm just going to put stuff into the space. Is that all right?
Yes.
Yeah, cool. And by the way, you're doing great, great work. So I really honor you. Like if there's any part of like the internal voice that's like, oh fuck, I'm doing this wrong, or like whatever yours, that's not mine. Mine's hard. But whatever yours sounds like, I invite you to trust me. You're doing awesome work right now. So thanks for letting yourself touch this stuff, be with it, et cetera, et cetera. So the emotion that showed up and then got pushed down, would that be accurate? Like it showed up and you kind of like pushed it down. So I have a sense
Yes.
that you have a story about that emotion. And that story is probably like a function of how you've been raised and the way we are societally towards women and emotion, as well as towards men and emotion. It's hard to be sad as a man, hard to be angry
Yeah.
as a woman. We kind of like genderize these emotions. No one's really getting off scot-free. I think women have it worse, but that's not really the point. So there, you push down that emotion. And my hunch is you have a story about that. Like, this is not welcome. This is not appropriate. I don't know what the story is. And my hunch is that's a really important thing for us to look at, because it occurs like something similar is happening when you're going out and pitching. Like there's something showing up for you and you're like, this isn't, it may not be the same emotion, but it's the same way of being about it, which is like, there's something happening here that I need to push down. It shouldn't be present. E.g.,
Okay.
I'm afraid, or like, oh, I've got some nervousness, and that's not okay. It's wrong for that to be here. So we can look at either of those two places. My sense is that they're kind of like siblings, if you like. They're very similar. And we look at one place, we look at the other. Does that make sense, what I've shared?
I'm trying to comprehend it now. So,
Yeah. So it sounds like
yes,
no. What I said doesn't
I,
make that much sense.
I- it makes sense in some ways, but I'm trying to internalize it now.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So I can hear the words. So now how do I internalize that? How do I say, yeah, okay, let me check that out. Let me think about
Yeah.
that.
Well, let me help clarify, because I don't want you to
Okay.
feel like you shouldn't have to do any work. So let me know if it's
Oh,
like,
okay.
dude, you're not making sense. But awesome. Let's work on that.
Okay.
So would you rather look at what's going on stage in the moment, or would you rather look at the emotion that showed up for you here? Where do you want to put our attention?
I think I still want to go back to it. Maybe it's the same
Yeah.
route, but for both.
Yeah.
But I'd like to concentrate more on the nervousness that I have.
Yeah. On the stage,
And
right?
yes, on the stage. Now, maybe it's
Perfect.
okay to have that nervousness, but then just say, okay, I am nervous. I know I'm going to be nervous. And now what do I do about it? Like, as you said,
Well, let's walk through that.
slow down, don't talk so fast, or, things that I could tell myself to do, like, okay, you're
Yes,
nervous. Let's
we'll
say,
come to that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
okay.
when you get up on stage or when you're pitching or whatever, let's like walk through it really slowly. So what happens? You start to pitch. Are you nervous at that point?
Let's say only if there's a clock there that I have 3 minutes, I feel I
Yeah.
have to talk fast.
Okay.
And so maybe that's part of it. Um, when there's a timer there for sure. But like even this week when I was speaking, there was no timer. I mean, I knew I had so much time, but I wasn't rushing through what I was saying because I knew I had the time there was no clock there that said I have 2 seconds to say this.
Uh-huh.
Um,
So clock adds to it.
yes, the clock that definitely adds to it. So,
Yeah.
and then, I find that if I when you're talking, you want to talk to everyone. So sometimes what I do is I just try to talk to one person for
Mm-hmm.
just a little longer
Mm-hmm.
to try to say, I'm just talking to them. I'm not talking to this group of 10,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's really more about how I try to get through it and
Yeah.
then how to try to calm myself down. So I may just have to say, I'm going to be nervous. So, but
Well,
what
let's slow
techniques
down
can
though.
I, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
okay.
so can you feel that part of you that's like, but what do I do? But what
Yeah.
do I do? Yeah, yeah. Very
Yeah,
human. I've got that too. I'm
yeah,
like
yeah.
productive A type. What do I do? But
Mhm.
it's a little bit like I'm going to give you a metaphor so that you can
Okay.
see why we wouldn't jump straight to that. Okay. So imagine we have this guy who's in a hole and he's like, I'm in a hole.
Mhm.
Get me out of this hole. And getting out of the hole seems like the obvious solution for him. Get me out of the hole. It sucks. So we like teach him how to build a ladder or whatever. And he climbs out of the hole. And it's like amazing. But imagine that the problem isn't that he was in a hole. It's that everywhere in life, he blunders blindly into holes. So if we
Okay.
create this solution for him to help him get out of the hole sooner, all it does is speed up the cycle.
Okay.
And I
Okay.
imagine you might already be engaged in this pattern of like feeling nervous and then what do I do? Is that accurate?
Yes. Yeah.
Aha.
Because I'm a doer. So I gotta
Totally.
do.
Totally. And because you're and because you're a result generator and because you're very
Mhm.
committed to what you want to create in the world. So of course
Yeah.
that would be there.
Yeah.
So before we get to like the solution, I really want to have us both fully understand like what's actually happening, what's really at play. So that's where we're looking right now. Okay.
Okay.
So tell me, like, you're getting up to pitch. Maybe you see a clock. What else are the triggers for your nervousness when you start to be like, oh shit, or however it sounds for you?
Mhm.
Probably more polite.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, but just like, okay, getting up and maybe if they were all perfect strangers, I would, uh, maybe that's part of it too. People I know, people,
People you know
um,
trigger it more.
yes, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. And then
Mhm.
what's the internal dialogue that starts to happen?
Huh. That's a good question. Don't get nervous. Don't get nervous.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
It's just like, calm down,
Right.
you know, uh,
Don't let the thing happen.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
calm down, slow down, slow to speed. Uh, yeah,
Yeah.
just,
And then you're doing a
yeah,
bunch of strategies to try to like address that, right?
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yes,
And
correct.
then I'm imagining it's not working. You're like, don't get nervous, don't get getting nervous. I'm getting nervous. Don't get nervous. Is that accurate?
Yes, correct.
Uh-huh. Got it.
Yeah.
What else do you notice is starting to happen internally as this is getting put together or building?
Mhm. My throat gets
Tell me
really
more.
dry,
Uh-huh. Throat
really,
gets
really
dry.
dry. Yeah. And yeah,
And
that's more
what
the physical part of it. My throat
uh-huh.
gets dry. And yeah, yes.
Got it.
Um, mm, Trying to think of anything else that I'm feeling. Probably tighten up a little.
Okay. And you're like
It's
physically tighten. Yeah.
yeah, yes.
And so what's the story about being nervous? Like I'm getting nervous and therefore, or that means that, or because I'm nervous, dot, dot, dot.
Well, again, I believe that it's that if people see that I'm nervous, it takes away from my story. I'm not
Uh-huh.
as effective.
Got it. Losing my story, less effective. Okay. Anything else?
I think those are this is what I want to. I want to be an individual that's passionate, but in
Mm-hmm.
control.
Mm-hmm. What does being nervous say about your passion? Anything?
I think nervousness says, I don't think nervousness, being nervous uh, does anything with the passion,
Okay.
uh, but it's that control part, being nervous. So it's like everybody wants people, if I'm going to invest in a company, I want the founder to be passionate because they're going to be a lot of battles, as you know, to fight through, and you've got a lot of
Yeah.
obstacles to overcome. You've got to understand what you want to do. You've got to have a vision and a passion and a purpose. But then getting nervous, it's like, oh, but there's a lack of control here. There's yeah, so that's
Mm.
all I can say about it. Yeah,
That's great. You said a lot. What's the risk or what might be the risk of having a lack of control?
it's that's yeah. Um, oh, let me think about that for a
Yeah,
sec.
by all means.
It's like,
Take all the time in the
okay,
world.
as it is, it's like you could be focused. You're focused, because with a leader, with running a company, you can't be all over the map. You have to be focused. You have to be able to uh, get through the weeds and be able to, in a situation with your employees, your team, you need to be able to be the guide, be the leader. Um, so if they see that that you're not able to control this aspect, then it, to me, in my mind, obviously I'm interpreting that it's a reflection on my leadership,
Uh-huh. And what is the reflection?
a negative reflection that I'm not able to lead effectively.
Got it. Okay, great. So there's like a sort of two things I want to separate for you here at this point, and then we'll continue to build on this. The first is like one thing is happening is you're getting nervous. Period. Like every human does. And then second, there's a lot of story or beliefs about what it means that you're getting nervous.
Yes.
So the story, the beliefs you have are like, I'm losing my story, I'm losing them, I'm less effective, I'm losing control. That means I'll be all over the map. I'm not a leader, I can't lead effectively. That sound about accurate?
Yes.
Uh-huh. So next, let's look at like the next step. So what do you do given all of that belief about being nervous? Like you're getting nervous and you got all those beliefs about it, then what are the actions you take in the moment?
Okay. What do I do? What do
Mm-hmm.
I try to do?
Yeah.
I try to slow down,
Okay.
and I look around and I try to find somebody that I can speak to, just for, you can't stop talk just to them. So enough that I can just be talking to that person, and they make eye contact, and I'm getting feedback from them
Like a
that
safe
it's
harbor.
good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay.
And then say, okay, that's fine. And then now I can take my eyes off of that person and the rest of the group and do that. So that's how I try to combat it.
Mm-hmm. That's one.
Yes.
Okay. And then we
Mhm.
also know you tell yourself internally, don't get nervous. Don't get nervous.
Yeah.
That's another
I
thing,
tell
right?
myself, yes.
Uh-huh.
I don't stop and say I don't get nervous. I would just stare. It's parallel processing,
Inside.
right? Say yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like your brain is split. Like,
Yeah.
don't do this. And then you're like, focus in on this one person, you know.
Yes.
Okay.
Focus in
Anything
on that
else?
person. Breathe. It's very
Okay.
important to breathe. um, how to
In what
take a
way?
deep breath,
Deep
like
breath?
kind of a deep breath, and then to pause it and then something, pause and take a deep breath, and then say, okay, all right, now I've got it. No, got it. So try to
Uh-huh.
do all of those things.
Okay.
Now, if you only have 3 minutes to do this, it's very difficult to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and that's what I found out. And that collision, it's like, okay. And so then physically I tighten up and my knees start knocking. So that we
Uh-huh.
don't want that for sure. And
Yeah.
yeah, anyway.
My dog's making a guest appearance. That's okay. He does that. I have a special stick to manage him opening my door. There we go. Handled. Okay. So nervousness happens, bunch of stories about the nervousness, and then react to the stories. That part makes sense?
Yes.
Because it's not okay to be nervous because you're losing people, blah, 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 blah.
Yes.
So I've got an assertion. And the assertion is that the problem here is the significance you attach to being nervous.
Okay.
What do you think I mean by that before I say anything else?
That I'm attaching. I'm the one who's probably bringing this on because I'm equating nervousness with being being impactful and being seen as having gravitas and being a leader. So I am bringing this on myself, of course, but so I do believe that I'm putting the importance on being nervous, and probably by doing that, I'm getting more nervous, and
Aha.
it's a cycle. Now, how do I break that cycle?
Yeah. Well, the first part is you notice that. So that's the first
Yeah.
step. It's the most annoying part because we want to do something. That is sort of
Yes.
like if I have this is a quote from a book I really love. Like, imagine you and I are consultant Sherry, and a dog comes to us, and the dog is like, okay, I need you guys to do a bunch of stuff for me. I'm chasing this thing. This dog is chasing its tail, but he doesn't know that. It's like, I'm chasing this thing. I need more speed because no matter how fast I go, this thing has managed to like stay out in front of me. Second, I need like strategy because no matter which way I try to turn, this thing is like one step ahead of me. It's nuts. Third, I need energy because I'm exhausted. I'm chasing this thing day and day night. It always has more stamina than and I lose track. I can't keep up with it. So I need all those things, and I think I pretty much need some more stuff, but that's like the base of it. And so we reveal to that dog, hey buddy, you're chasing your tail. Like that's the thing. And
Yes.
what every single one of us humans do is what the dog does, which is great. How do I stop chasing my tail? Right? What's the answer to the dog? What would you tell the dog?
Accept it. You're chasing your tail.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
So it's not so I'm going to give you like some ways to hold nervousness a little bit differently. But
Okay.
the core of this is like what's happening is you're adding significance to it because you
Yes.
have a story that nervousness is bad or wrong.
Okay.
And that then has you breed more nervousness, of course, right? It's like, ah, crap, I'm getting scared, nervous,
Mhm.
whatever we want to call it. I'm getting scared. Scared is wrong. I shouldn't be. And then we try to like clench that down. All that does is it stops us from being able to actually feel the emotion and then letting it move on.
Yes. Okay.
So you
Mm.
see this a lot in imposter syndrome. Do you ever mentor people with imposter syndrome?
Yes.
Mm.
Yes.
What do they try to do? What's their immediate strategy with imposter syndrome? Like the one that you know doesn't work.
Mm. I can think just this. Oh no, I don't have that. Sometimes it just in a diet, um, or they step back and go, "Oh yeah, yeah, I really am an imposter." Some people do think that they hear the courses in their head and they can't get past it. There's several different reactions to it. There's some
Yeah.
just say, "Oh, this is what I'm going to do about it." Is that
Yeah.
doing? Yes.
Yeah. So as a man who has had lots of imposter syndrome and still has plenty of it, because I'm a human and I've got a pretty brilliant brain. And those of us with a lot of brilliance tend to be quite, I mean, you can probably relate to this. We fear looking dumb. That's imposter syndrome. I'm worried that I'll look dumb or whatever. And so some of the solutions are like, I will over prepare. I will study for
Yeah.
20 hours to prove to me and everyone else that I'm not an imposter. The truth is, on some level, we're always an imposter, on some degree. And in many ways, we're just straight up an imposter. We don't know the answer. We don't have it all figured out. And the solution comes when we just accept that. When we stop trying to outrun it, when we stop making it mean something significant, like, oh my God, I'm an imposter. It's just like, oh yeah, I'm just like a human. Not such a big deal. So part of this for you, Sherry, I think, is like coming to terms with like, oh, I'm nervous, and that doesn't mean anything other than what you choose to make it mean.
Okay.
Right now, it's a lot, right?
Mhm.
So I'm going to
Yes.
offer this, and then I want to check in and see how this is sitting with you. And I'm especially interested to hear your objections if you have any, because that's where the meat is for us. So like nervousness could mean you don't have your shit together. Nervousness could mean you don't believe in your product. Those are some versions of what nervousness could mean. That's a context, what we call a context in which you can place nervousness. Nervousness means, here's another context. I'm nervous because I care so damn much about this thing, and it's so important to me. And I'm worried that it's not going to get out into the world. And so I have some nervousness about it in pitching it because I really want this to land. That's why I'm nervous. Can you see that that's a different way of holding nervousness?
Yes. Yes. I
Does
think
that?
yeah, well, I do believe in my product, but I
Yeah.
do, but this happens not just when I'm talking about product or my company.
Yeah.
So I think this latter is more, is what I believe is more applicable to me, because it doesn't matter now what subject it is. It could
Yes.
be anything, but
Yeah.
I'm not up speaking about something I don't believe in, and I want it.
Totally.
So if I'm up there, I'm doing it because I believe in it. I want it to land. I want people to believe in it.
Yeah. Because you
So I think the
care.
latter, because I care. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and one of the things I really get, there's a couple of things I really get about you, Sherry. One is that you bring a tremendous amount of grace into the space. And second, that you bring a tremendous amount of integrity. And so I'm really clear, you would not be peddling concepts, ideas that didn't matter to you, that you didn't care about.
Yes.
And so you're right, it's not really about the particular, whether it's the women helping women or whatever, it's not really about that thing. All of this is about the nervousness. It's the story created around that and what that means, and then all of the strategy layered on top of it.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Whoops.
I like
And
I like the story about the dog chasing stuff. So
yeah,
I
it's
really
great,
do.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's great. Yes.
Now here's the challenge, is that just because you can see something new
Mhm.
doesn't mean that that new belief is there.
Yeah.
I.e., that dog wakes up the next day and he's like, oh God, I just got to stop chasing my tail. And then he sees something out of the corner of his eye and he's going around in circles again.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
part of the journey here that'll be frustrating, I think, is that it'll take longer than you want it to. Good.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because I have no patience. So yeah,
Yeah.
yes. I know it will. I know it will be frustrating. Yeah. But
Yeah.
things are frustrating at times. Yes. So
And to give you a lot of
yeah.
credit here, the world we live in is a world that eschews transformation. Transformation is what really makes a difference. This can be transformed. We eschew that for like a quick fix.
Yes.
Give me the book with the 5 things I need to do, and then I will never feel nervous again.
Mhm.
And that's a lovely fantasy. Like, oh, imagine if I never had to feel nervous again. But nervousness is just fear, and fear is part of the abundance of being a human being. And so what's
Yeah.
available, the thing I want to invite you into, like the possibility is, imagine if you still got nervous because you cared about the stuff you're up to and because what you're doing matters in the world and because you're having a big impact, but that nervousness never had to control you ever again. It never had to change the way you showed up. And imagine if you could just show up on stage and be like, all right, let's start with this. My armpits are a little, you don't have to say it my way. Be like, my armpits are a little sweaty, a little bit of a sweaty forehead, a little bit nervous about pitching to you guys because I care about this. And I just want to put that into the space first so that I can now move beyond it. And that actually had you even more enrolling. Is that a possibility? Not saying it that way, but like just the possibility that nervousness could be something that supports you rather than detracts from you. Is that something that is enticing for you?
I'd love to be able to own it like that. So
Yeah.
yes, and I have not tried that for sure.
Yeah.
Mm.
And can you see how that might be freeing? Like, would that free
Yeah.
you up a little bit? Yeah.
I'm ready to try it and to see if it does.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. So I can give you some practices to take on. But before I do, I'm going to check like what objections, because usually there's a part of our own nervousness or the part that is generating the story, like blah, 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 that has an objection to this stuff. Like, yeah, that's a great idea, but so anything like that showing up for you?
No, I'm willing to try it. Obviously what I'm doing at this time isn't working. So, yeah, Einstein
Yeah.
says if you do the same thing and expect different results, it's not going to happen. So you have to try something different.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
And it's
so,
hilarious because
but
you keep doing it in
yeah,
spite of
yeah,
knowing that.
yeah. But as you said, it's not, and because I'm not that patient of an individual, uh, I have to just keep telling myself, oh, maybe it didn't work this time, but keep trying it, trying different. Well, try one thing, do an
Yeah.
experiment, try it for so many times and then kind of, but again, yeah, yeah, I'm a doer. I make things happen. So,
Tell me
but
what
I've
was
got,
the
as you
but
said,
again? What was the but again that showed
well,
up?
because then it's almost that cycle again that, okay, I can do, just persevere through it and it'll happen
Yeah.
instead of just accepting that, okay, I don't know. It's that I think it's again, it's the same thing that you said, how I feel about nervousness, that I have a story about it. The same
Yeah.
thing, like, well, I will try different things, but then I put the pressure on myself to make it successful.
Yes.
That might
Yes.
be.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is really it's so great. And I want to reflect to you, Sherry, like you feel like when I reflected you were a 7 or 8, you feel like a 3 or 4 in this moment.
Yes,
So there's been a
yes,
shift.
yeah.
I want to acknowledge that.
Okay,
In
all
part
right.
because I would assert you're allowing yourself to be exactly as you are rather than how you think you should be. That's kind of freeing, right? Like, oh, all right, that
Yes,
feels
yeah,
nice. My shoulders are less tense. Feels pretty good.
yeah.
So that's brilliant how you put that. Like there's a part of us, especially those of us that are A-type, where we're like, all right, I'm going to hammer this home. And the practice is often more of like one of surrender, which we don't like
No.
and often sounds kind of flimsy. So it's not without something to do, but it's also like kind of being willing to practice and have the world do whatever the world's going to do. So here's what will typically happen when someone practices with something new like this. I want to lay out the arc for you and then
Okay.
I'll give you the practice, okay? Or would you rather the other way around? Do you want the practice first and then the arc?
No, I'm fine.
Okay,
No.
great.
Okay.
So one, you've got, you could even think of it like neural pathways that are lined up in alignment with this story about nervousness, right? Like it's a well-worn sort of pattern, like nervousness is
Yes.
bad, therefore you've got strategies to manage that and so on and so forth. So that's the first part. The second part is we naturally train people around us to kind of be a part of that story. So if I have a belief that nervousness is bad, I'm going to, one, sort of frown on it, maybe subtly, maybe, but still a little bit energetically when other people are nervous around me. And that's going to train the people around me, don't be nervous around Adam, which is probably going to make them a little nervous. If you're around someone, you're like, don't be nervous around this person, tends to make you a bit nervous. So that's going to happen. And two, people are going to have this sort of this way of receiving Sherry, which is like, oh, Sherry's someone who's never nervous, right? Because that's how you've been about it. Does that make sense?
Yes. I don't think that, yeah, no. I have people I work with that I don't think are nervous ever. But
Right. Which is
yeah,
weird if you think about it, because it's
yeah,
part
it
of
is
being
weird.
human, right?
I-
So
And
that's what I'm
and and
talking about.
and in fact, I find it disconcerting. I'm
That's
thinking,
exactly the word I was thinking of.
don't they get passionate about anything? Don't they let their
Totally.
emotions get, yeah, I know. It's like this all the time. I think it's not me.
That's
So,
right. It's untrustable because on some level, even though we have stories and stuff, we're like, I don't buy this. This feels fraudulent on some, not intentionally maybe, but like on some level, I don't buy it. Like, where's the humanity? So you're of course you're surrounded by those people because that's what you're trying to do internally. Never be nervous. And so then you're naturally going to be surrounded by people similar, right? So as you start to practice, as you start to practice being a little more like taking ownership, like, hey, I'm actually a little nervous right now. One, you're going to have a reaction to that because you're now breaking through the existing pattern. And two, they're going to have a reaction to it because you've trained them a particular way. And their reaction will tend to trigger you again. So it's like, fuck, I'm doing this. It feels kind of edgy. I don't really love it, but oh, I hope people like it. And then people are like, what's going on? This is weird. Or they just have like that on their face.
yeah.
That look. And then you go, oh crap, that look on their face means I'm doing it wrong. And what it does is it pushes us back to the status quo.
Okay.
So all of that is totally fine. It's not bad or wrong. It's just the thing in the way of our transformation. And that's what we're always moving through. And we could be talking about someone like loving themselves more. We could be talking about someone telling the truth more. We could be talking about someone creating more intimacy in their life. We could be talking about someone learning how to allow themselves to be sad. The same thing I'm describing would happen. So it's not specific to you. This is just the nature of the game. So it's good, I find, to like recognize, oh, that's what's probably going to happen. And I'm willing to practice anyhow because I want to be free. Make sense?
Yes, it makes sense.
And then as you keep practicing this, what happens is that people start to notice like, whoa, Sherry seems lighter. Sherry seems more content. Sherry seems easier and more at ease in her body. And then what happens is they start to pick up on the new way that you are being. And so they start to have this experience where they're like, huh, I always thought my nervousness was wrong or inappropriate, but I'm noticing that Sherry's owning it in a way that seems like really powerful. Maybe it's okay for me to take that on. And so by virtue of you staying the course and transforming, you create what we call the clearing for them to then start to do the same thing. So that's what's available down this path. And that's one of the ways you can help your mentees is just by like doing this on yourself. Does that all make sense?
Yes, it makes sense.
Cool. Any questions about that, any of that before we get to like what you might practice?
No.
Okay, cool. So there's a couple of things I would suggest. You can write them down if you like. We're recording this. You can check it out after the fact, but so the first one would be, it can be really helpful to like, what is my story about nervousness? Like just to write it out for yourself. So it's nice and clear and on paper.
Okay.
And what that does is like, because usually our story doesn't exist like a story, it sort of exists for us as like, that's the truth. Nervousness, bad. So when you write it on a piece of paper, it kind of gives you almost like literally a bit of a separation from yourself. So that can be helpful.
Okay.
The second thing is to simply watch yourself creating the truth of that story. So that's the part where you're like noticing, oh, I'm getting nervous. And oh, here's me telling myself, don't be nervous. This is bad. This is wrong.
Okay.
Oh, here I am recreating the truth of that story. So that's sort of like this person watching themselves blunder into the hole.
Yeah.
They can start to see, oh, and that gives us a bit more altitude from it. We can sort of see a little bit better. The third thing would be to practice in small places. So it might not be with like, you know, in front of an audience of $10,000 or 10,000 participants where they're all like, we're going to see Sherry show us like the world's greatest pitch. That might be too high stakes. So you can practice lower stakes. Like maybe you're at dinner with your friends and they're like, hey, Sherry, tell us about this. Come on, get it better. That made me nervous. I'm back. So it might be with your friends when they say, Sherry, tell us about your latest like thing that you're up to. And you're like, oh, I got a little bit scared. I'm worried that I'm going to come off a particular way or whatever. So that might be the way to practice. Oh yeah, I'd love to, but I got a little nervousness in this moment. So I just want to acknowledge that. And then I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
So you can practice small. And the beautiful thing, I'll let you write that first.
Yes, I got that.
Yeah. The beautiful thing is because we're talking not about what you're doing, but who you're being about nervousness. If you practice over here with your friends, it will also be practicing over here with your pitch, you know, people. And if you practice with them, it'll also be practicing over here with your partners or over here with your coworkers or whatever. So you can practice this anywhere. And it doesn't matter if it's big or small. It's just about what's the gradient I'm ready to practice at right now. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Uh-huh. And then the last thing I find just helpful as like a sort of a sentence to capture all this is the statement, if you can't fix it, feature it. So I'll tell a quick story about that, which is like growing up for me, I was a nerd, giant, big old nerd playing Magic the Gathering in the library and at school and got made fun of and, you know, whatever. And I'm still a nerd. That hasn't changed one bit at all. But as a nerd, I didn't like that girls didn't like me. I didn't like that I got made fun of. And so what I learned to do was I studied people and I studied like what is like desirable, what looks cool. And then I made my life being about replicating that. So for a lot of my life, what I was like this kind of like robot, perfectly doing an impression of like cool, of what looks good and what fits, you know, all that stuff. Does that make sense the way I've described that?
Yeah. Yes.
I was like, I am cool bot.
Yeah.
And so there was certain things that like I had no capacity to be with, such as sweaty armpits, your underwear hanging out the back of your pants, you know, silly stuff that every human has. Anyhow, this would completely throw me off when I was giving presentations. I'd worry like, oh my God, I think I'm getting sweaty. My armpits are sweating. Of course, worrying about that made me sweat a little bit more. I'd have some stains. And then so I would start presenting like this, like some weird fridge. No, this is just the way I'm a T-Rex. This is how I like to present. Just don't look at my armpits, right? I was doing this weird impression. And as I was starting to walk down this path, similar to yours, a little bit different, but same kind of vibe, one of my teachers was like, you know, Adam, practice with this idea. If you can't fix it, feature it. And so I was in this presentation. I was like, these sweaty armpits. I'm just gonna say, and I was like, guys, I just want to tell you, I'm aware I have sweaty armpits because I'm excited and I'm sweaty and it's hot in this room and I'm a little nervous and I've been trying to hide that from you, but it's not working and I just got to feature it. Instead of trying to fix it, I'm going to acknowledge it's there so we can all move on past it. And it was a miracle because after that we could all stop paying attention to it. Until I said that, everyone in the crowd was sort of like, does he realize he's got sweaty armpits? And I was like, do they realize I have sweaty armpits? And it was dominating our attention, right? So once we can acknowledge it, then all of us can move past it. And that's part of what we do as leaders, is we acknowledge what's in the space. And then once we do that, we can all stop worrying about it. It's like, oh, got it. It's just nervousness. Cool. She's excited about this. Make sense?
Yes, it makes sense.
Cool. Relatable story at all?
Yes, relatable for sure. Yeah.
Cool. Anything else that so I'm curious, any objections or what abouts or like questions about any of this that are there for you, Sherry?
No, I'm just ready to try it out. By
Awesome.
practicing.
Cool.
Yeah.
There's a softness in your face and like a lightness that I'm present to in this moment. So thanks for letting yourself like be here exactly as you are. Beautiful.
Thank you.
So what I like to do to finish up is acknowledge someone, and then we'll do like a little bit of a debrief. I'll just sort of like, hey, anything you were surprised by or anything, and there's no right answer. You can be like, I have no answer, and that makes me nervous. That'd be an amazing, an amazing practice. So may I acknowledge you to finish up?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I don't know if you're familiar with this term. It's not widely used, but the practice in being acknowledged is to sit quietly and take everything that I share as truth, because the truth as I see it. So Sherry, I want to acknowledge you for a few things. The first is like your courage. God damn, woman. I'm so inspired and in awe that you who have created countless successes and results and like are probably highly sought after to support other people. And to whatever extent that's true, don't worry about it. But like, I imagine there's a lot of people that look up to you and that are sort of like, man, I would really like to like be mentored by her. I am so inspired by your willingness to be here in this conversation, because like that's not a requirement. You know, the accolades are there. The people, the kudos is there. And yet here you are sort of like doing your work. And that's remarkable. I so honor the grace that you are, like the poise that you are. And I really love, one of the things I love about people with a tremendous amount of grace is like one of the things that most sets them free is sort of like coming to this acceptance that sometimes we're all clumsy and foolish and dumb and in all of that stuff, and being willing to accept that part of ourselves is even more grace available. So thanks for just being a woman with a tremendous amount of poise and grace. And finally, I honor your tenderness and like the soft part of your heart and like your willingness to touch the emotions to the extent you were, and that they're there. And I really get like, as a man with a huge heart, I'm also really aware that big hearts build big walls. And especially when we're in a world that demands success, big heart's a real liability. It gets in the way. And without that thing, if we can just run ourselves through our heads, we can make everything work and we can make difficult decisions without being obliterated by it. And so I honor your intellect and the part of you that created that. And I also honor your willingness to start to give your heart a little bit more of a voice and to touch it a little bit more. You're doing incredible work, and I'm honored to get to share this space with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you feel acknowledged?
I do.
Good. Good. Thank you for letting it
Yes.
in. Okay. So now we do a brief debrief, and then I want to hear about like the cool stuff that you're putting into the world. So
Yes.
anything like in this moment, anything to comment on, anything surprising or in particular that stood out for you about the conversation we just had?
I found it, I felt lighter. I I do. So I think it's, yeah, I appreciate the work that you just did.
Ah,
I'm a
cool.
work in progress, so I
Me
appreciate your
too.
support. So,
Uh-huh. Yeah. Boy, I'm such a work in progress. It's embarrassing sometimes.
yeah.
I like I I've been in this work for like over probably about 12, maybe 13 years. I train coaches, I develop leadership, I do all of this stuff. And it's startling maybe, or maybe just astounding to me how all of that stuff, and I still have like these incredibly human parts where I'm like, I'm scared because of this, or here I have like stuff not working with my money, or over here, like there's just always more of the edge of being human for us to like lean into. And so thanks for being another human with another human over here.
Uh,
One thing I was really present to in our conversation was like I was present to the nervousness at the start and like a little bit over here too. And I was kind of feeling like, okay, I wonder, like I could feel tenderness on your part. That was my experience. It's like, oh, this is a tender space that we're in. And I was like, I wonder if we're gonna get to like work with these emotions, or if they're just gonna show up and then we're gonna set them aside, and then it's just not gonna be the time for it. And like,
you didn't seem to want that to happen. You didn't want me to set it aside. So,
well, that was like the dance I was in,
yeah, yeah.
because I was like, I can feel there's gold down this path, but I also like, I really want to, part of the thing about this work is to really honor where the person's at. And so I was trying to like, okay, I can feel that truth, but then Sherry's the one that gets to set our agenda and where we go. And like ultimately for you, that was like not really where you wanted to go. It was like, okay, cool. We're gonna set that aside and just trust that whatever there is to come forward will come forward. And I think it did. So, but it's, those moments are always like scary because my brain is just like going in overdrive. It's got this huge schematic, like a flow chart. Here's how it's all going to go and how it's going to work. And I have to like set that aside and be like, no, 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 go away. We're just going to trust this moment and this opportunity. Cool. Okay, Sherry, you better tell us some of the cool stuff you're up to. So is it Women Helping Women is the group? I know
Women funding women.
That's it.
It
Tell us
is a
about that.
collect. It's a Canadian national wide collective to get more angel investors
Mm,
to support women-led ventures through
uh-huh.
their pre-seed and seed financing. And how we do it is just we're amplifying what's working and trying to figure out how to fill the gap.
Mm,
So it's exciting. I mentioned in our pre-talk that there's a study that was put out, if we could get women to invest in the same level as men, we could add $3.22 trillion to the available capital. So being a woman led founder and leading several companies, 5 companies, to successful exits over periods of time, I know the battles that women face. And my recent raise last year, I ended up the majority were first time uh, angel investors, female
mm,
first time angel investors. And so it was great to see that this could work and that we can engage more women in this process. We need to.
yeah.
Uh, and so that's my side gig. My full-time job is with Profound Impact, where we are trying to get better research results. There's over $300 billion in research funding available every year.
Wow.
And there's hundreds of thousands of researchers and thousands of companies that need that funding to do fundamental and breakthrough research. Yet there's waste. It's not an effective process. So we're using AI and data, big data, to match researchers to the correct funding and funding
Oh,
to the
cool.
correct researchers, whether they're academic or industry researchers, so that we can get better research results. And we're trying to be transformational and disruptive because this is an area that we need to
No
have
kidding.
disruption
Yeah.
because we have some huge problems to solve.
Yeah, no kidding. Just going back to the first, your side gig, what are some of you said that there's like lots of problems women face. Like, what are some of them that you're present to?
There's only 1.9% of all venture capital given to women-led ventures.
Wow. That's
1.9%.
so little.
Yeah,
Huh.
that's North America wide.
Huh.
So, and
Wow.
so you say, okay, well, how many ventures are there? There are a lot
Right.
of women-led ventures.
Right.
So
So it's
that's
not like that there's just 1.9% of women are putting ventures
no,
forward. Not at all. Yeah.
yes. So there's a lot of women, and part of it is, I believe, unconscious bias in the whole system. And you're pitching mostly to men because there are, again, only 1.3% of venture capitalists that are women.
Uh-huh.
So we've got these numbers that we want to change. We want to see change here and to be and just quit talking about it. Be the catalyst for change. That's what we're
Yeah.
trying to do with this initiative. And it is it's very rewarding to see women being successful. And I think we need to spotlight it more. We need to sing
Yeah.
about it more. We need to shout it out more. And I think that'll help with the stories. But we also need to make some fundamental changes. And that means getting more women as VCs, and then also getting more women to invest at the angel level.
Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. Boy, howdy, do we ever need like more, how do you describe it? Like sing about it more, share about it more, put it out there more.
Yeah.
And it really is like a one of the things I'm really present to is like the collective wound of our imbalance and how like, you know, there's a tremendous impact on women. There's also kind of like, people that are standing for diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging will talk about how like there is a profound impact of racism on white people too. They're just unaware of it, and I think that there's like a profound impact of this inequity you're describing on men too, and we're largely unaware of that because men have the power or structures or whatever it happens to be. So there's really something to be gained for all of us in the
Yes.
sort of path that you're walking.
And I do believe that many of the obstacles are that male VCs we feel, women founders feel, are placed there are unconscious. The biases are there that they don't even know.
Yeah.
And I've been talking about this for a while. Uh, that's why I decided to get off the soapbox and quit talking about it and try
Yeah.
to do something
Uh-huh.
about
How
it.
far into it are you? Is it brand new? Is it a year? Like how
Well,
far?
we just launched it this week.
Oh, amazing.
Women funding women, and we had a huge successful launch in Toronto. But we had people, VCs, founders from all across Canada come. So
Wow.
we're going to be doing a similar event in Vancouver in this fall. So we're
Sweet.
excited about that. But it's more than just having an event and doing this. It's about building ecosystem to support
Yes.
this, the support to do something about this funding gap.
Yes,
Yeah,
indeed. What
yeah.
what are you like, what are you looking for in that particular thing?
We're,
Like, are you
yeah, well, our call to action is to um, get more women to angel invest.
Yeah.
There are a lot of resources out there to teach to their angel groups. There's a group out of Calgary called the 51 that you can invest in for $500, and then
Uh-huh.
you're in a group. So you say, I don't have thousands of dollars to put into a fund or to even go in myself by myself into an investment. And then there are classes to take and courses that are available online to say, oh, I'm interested in doing that.
Mm.
I've not done it before, but I think I'd like to take a small percentage of my portfolio and give back in this way. And remember, it's an investment. So
Yeah.
the whole goal is to make some money out of it too. So
Uh-huh.
it's
So you're
not
looking for
philanthropy.
investors primarily.
Yes.
Is that
So
right?
for
Yeah.
female investors to say, you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take a small step and invest in a fund for $500 or $1,000, and then see how it works for you. And then also to take some training, because we're not asking you to ignore the risks. We just want you to learn how to be risk aware.
Uh-huh.
And say, okay, I'm aware of the risks, I want to do this anyway. And there's a big upside, and there's also the upside that you can make an impact too. So,
are you looking for founders as well, or is that pretty much like, okay, got
founders into the ecosystem, because we want to really be able to quantify. I mean, we can to certain things, but we'd like to encourage more women founders. That's what I'm saying too.
Yeah, cool.
And so we're on LinkedIn, Women Funding Women. You can reach us that way. Yes.
Cool. I'll put a link to that, and I'll try to get that in the show notes too. I'll tell my producer to put that in. And then the last thing you mentioned was it was proximity. This is your full-time thing. What was the?
No, Profound Impact is my company.
Profound Impact. My apologies. And is there anything you're looking for in that regard? Like, are you guys like just heads down?
No,
well,
we are trying to do that. I think it would be interesting if we could, if you're in industry, you have a business, you need some funding, come to our website, profoundimpact.com, sign up with us. If you're a researcher and you need funding, come to our site. It's free for researchers to sign up, and we can help you find the funding. Any particular type
of researcher?
No, we're pretty broad. We have many of our opportunities are in computer science, mathematics, engineering,
STEM kind of.
STEM. Yeah. AI crosses all of those, but we're also pharmaceutical. We're on. Just come and try it for free to see that hopefully we can find you the perfect funding match for you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. And is there anywhere people go to like follow your work? Like, do you post a newsletter? Do you put any part of yourself in there? Where do they do that?
Yeah. Well, we on our website, profoundimpact.com, we have a monthly newsletter called Profound Connections, of course. Beautiful. And then you can find me on LinkedIn. I have a huge presence on LinkedIn. And reach out to me. I'd be happy to hear from many of you.
Awesome. Sherry, thank you so much for the work that you're doing. Thanks for being like the gift that you are in the space. Thanks for being in this conversation with me. And this has been a treat. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for your time and all the great work that you're doing.
Thanks. Now you hold tight. I'm gonna say goodbye to everyone, and then we'll just say goodbye after I stop this live stream. So everyone have an amazing weekend. If you're catching this on the podcast, thank you for being a part. Thank you for being in the work, truly, because it's much easier not to. Thanks, everyone. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.